What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Mock Draft Guy YouTube channel. Today, I am finally coming at you with my first 2024 NFL mock draft. I know I really don't like the moniker anymore, way too early. Of course, it's way too early for one of these, but the way too early mock draft is usually for something that happens right after the draft has commenced. So I kind of sat back this year, and instead of the bums rush to get the first 2024 mock draft out there like everyone does, I just sat back. I did a couple other things. I did some undrafted videos. I went a different way. And then I kind of sat back and I figured this would be the right time to do it. We've let the dust settle a little bit. Now it's time to really start getting into it and looking at some of these prospects. So this is a draft order that I came up with. So it's going to look a lot different than the standard run-of-the-mill mock drafts that you're looking at, whether it be an article, whether it be some other people, or whether it be NFL mockdraftdatabase.com. They have their preset draft order. This is something that I figured would give us a more realistic look at what the draft could possibly look like here. Okay, so without further ado, I think we should get into it. Number one, I have the Washington Commanders. Now, this is not the Commanders being bad and getting the first overall pick. This is the Commanders trading up to the number one overall pick. Now, I think that this is a real possibility going into next year's draft. There's really maybe five teams I could realistically see trying to draft Caleb Williams with the number one overall pick. That's Washington, that is Arizona in their own right, that's Tampa, that's the Rams, and maybe the Falcons. So I went with the Washington Commanders. It just makes the most sense. They seem like out of all those teams, they have a roster that's ready to compete besides for the quarterback position. I know that they're going into this year with Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett as their two top quarterbacks. Very uninspiring to say the least. But, those guys could probably get them 6, 7, maybe even 8 wins. So I don't think that they would lose enough games to have the number one overall spot. So I think with this basically being Ron Rivera's swan song, I think everyone knows that Eric Bieniemy will be taking over as the head coach after this year. I think Bieniemy is going to want someone that he can mold into his own version of Patrick Mahomes. So I am going to go with Caleb Williams at number one to Washington. It just makes the most sense, I feel like, in terms of looking at other teams than the Cardinals to draft Caleb Williams. I still think that the Arizona Cardinals have a ton of money invested into Kyler Murray. Can they trade him? Probably. They could probably get something really good for him. But I think that they're going to stay with Kyler Murray, especially with the amount of money that he's making. And you know what you're going to get from Kyler Murray. And I feel like we still haven't even seen the best of what Kyler Murray could bring. So I think that he stays in Arizona. They build around him. They get an absolute haul for this first overall pick, of course. And that's 2 years in a row where they're trading back and they're probably getting multiple first-round picks. So they're going to continue to build this team under Jonathan Gannon. They have a lot of holes, especially on the defensive side. I don't think potentially holding the number one and number two overall picks, I don't think it makes sense to stay at both number one and number two, even though you could be getting a generational quarterback prospect with Caleb Williams, but I don't think it's worth resetting your entire franchise. It's a huge gamble, and I think you could be better off trading that pick and getting an absolute haul for it. So Washington will take Caleb Williams with the number one overall pick. I think regardless of who has number one, I think it's going to be Caleb Williams. Number two, Arizona Cardinals. This is pretty straightforward. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver prospect I've ever looked at in terms of, tape, all that kind of stuff, scouting. He is sensational from top to bottom. It's really tough. If you guys haven't seen my Marvin Harrison Jr. 2024 prospect profile, give it a look for sure. There's really not an area that I could really nitpick saying this is a weakness. He's sensational. He's easily going to be, I think he has a chance to come into the NFL and be a top 10 wide receiver right away. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the pick here for me at number two. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. They get their franchise wide receiver and someone who potentially 8-9 years down the line could be looked at as the best wide receiver in football, maybe even sooner than that. Number three, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I think with Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield on their roster, even if they sign another veteran at some point, it's just so uninspiring. This roster is getting older, and their window to even win the division is closing by the minute or by the passes that Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield throw. If they're this high up, they're going to pick a quarterback. And I think Drake May is the second best quarterback in this class. So I think that's a pretty much no-brainer there. If they're picking this high, they're going to be taking a quarterback here. And I think Drake May is a great player. I think he's a great playmaker as well. And I'm really excited to see him jump from so much potential last year to maybe making that potential look a little bit more concrete, because I feel like this is a similar way that we were looking at Sam Howell, where Sam Howell was awesome. And then the year that he was drafted, he wasn't really that good. And a lot of holes were showing in his game. And then he wound up being a 5th-round pick. So I like Drake May here at number 3. At number 4, I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction here. I just think there's a lot of different ways the Rams can go. We have Joe Alt, we have Ola Fashanu, we have Brock Bowers just sitting here at number 4. I know, those are the cool picks. I mean, maybe not Joe Alt and Ola Fashanu. Jared Verse is here, Brock Bowers, Emeka Egbuka is still here, all those kind of guys, all these flashy pass catchers, all that. I'm going to go in a different direction. With the amount of money that they're paying Matthew Stafford, the only way that they draft a quarterback, I feel like, is if he retires. They're not going to be able to trade him. They can't cut him. If he still wants to play football, he's going to have to play in Los Angeles. I don't think a tackle is on the cards right now. With the amount of money that they're paying Joseph Noteboom, with the amount of money that they're paying Rob Havenstein through next year, I just don't think it's in the cards right now. So I'm going to look at the secondary. Besides for Jacoby Durant, I mean, the secondary definitely needs work, and I think it's going to get exposed for the most part this upcoming year. It's not going to be a good year for the Los Angeles Rams. I think we can all agree on that. So I'm going to go in a draft class that's not really known for its secondary so far. Kool-Aid McKinstry stands out as the clear-cut cornerback 1, and we've seen this in the last 2 years, really, that teams, or really 3 or 4 years, I guess ever since Jeff Okudah was taken number 3 overall, we've seen teams not shy away from taking cornerbacks inside, not even the top 5, let alone the top 3. You think, well, this past year, Devin Witherspoon was the number 5th overall pick. 2 years ago, you had Derek Stingley Jr., and you had Sauce Gardner as number 3 and number 4, and then you had Jeff Okudah a few years back as number 3. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we see a cornerback go this high, and I think Kool-Aid McKinstry would be the guy that would be taken this high. So I'm going to go with McKinstry here at number 4. Then at number 5, the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans were a tough one for me, honestly, but looking at their roster right now, they went from having a surplus of pass rushers to a team that literally has Danico Autry listed as a left defensive end and an outside linebacker. So there's no 2 Danico Autrys on the Tennessee Titans. I think that either way, this is a toss-up pick for me. I think they're going to have to go with defense with this pick. Especially this past year, they didn't bolster their defense at all, I'm pretty sure, in the draft. The Tennessee Titans, I believe, had 5 picks. I believe they were all offensive picks, and they didn't really make too much noise in free agency. So they're going to have to bolster their defense. They're going into this year a little bit more depleted than they were last year. I think a upgrade on the defensive line or at the edge position is necessary. And there's a very polarizing prospect that's on the board right here, and that's got to be Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner is someone that I've seen either have super high reviews or people are just super low on him. It's either people think he's going to be easily a top 5 pick, or people think that he's in the top 20. I mean, either way, it's really not bad. You're still a top 20 pick. But I think Dallas Turner is going to step into that Will Anderson role this year, and I think he's going to show out. I think that he is easily the most athletic edge rusher of this class, and I think that he would make the most sense for an outside linebacker position for the Tennessee Titans. So I'm going to take Dallas Turner at 5. And then subsequently enough, at number 6, the Chicago Bears did a really, really nice job retooling their defensive line with mid-round picks, mostly the defensive tackle position. I think they still have to go after edge. I mean, I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head who their 2 edge rushers are. I don't think it's anything of note, to be quite honest with you. But we know that their pass rush has been a work in progress for some time now. Jared Verse is still here on the board. This is someone who I thought could have been a first-round pick. Last year, he decided to go back to Florida State for another year, and I think it pays off for him. I think he winds up being a top 10 pick regardless. So Jared Verse would be the clear-cut pick at number 6 here for me. And then at number 7, I put the Atlanta Falcons at number 7. I really didn't want to put them here because If you guys watch videos on my channel before, you know that I am super high on the Atlanta Falcons. What they did this past offseason in terms of bolstering themselves defensively, they added Bijan Robinson. They're going to be a fun team to watch. The only position I worry about is the quarterback position. I mean, Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke do not scream division winners to me. I know that the NFC South is probably either the easiest or the second easiest division in the National Football League to win right now in terms of if you look at every team's roster in those two divisions. But I don't know. I didn't see too much from Desmond Ridder to get me really, really excited. And Taylor Heineke's a nice story, but he's not someone that I'm confident can take a team to a division title. So I think if they're picking at number 7, I think they're going to have to go quarterback here. And this was tough for me. I'm super high on Mike Penix, but I think it's going to be Quinn Ewers, honestly. I think Ewers didn't have the greatest season last year, but I think that his talent is going to show through this year, and he's going to show us why he was such a highly touted recruit, and I think that he's going to show us why a lot of people from, years ago thought that he was going to be the number 1 overall pick. I don't think he'll be the number 1 overall pick, but I think that he's worth a top 10 selection, and I think the Atlanta Falcons will finally be in the right – they'll finally have a chance to logistically and realistically compete for the NFC South for years to come if they draft Quinn Ewers. I'm going to take him here at 7. At number 8, this is where I have the Arizona Cardinals, which was the original Washington Commanders pick for me. At number 8 with the Arizona Cardinals, the pick is going to be TJ Tuimoloau for me. I know that the stats aren't going to jump off the page at you with Tuimoloau. 6'4", 270 pounds, super athletic. And this is a team, the Arizona Cardinals, that you look at their defensive line right now, wow, it is going to be a struggle for them to put up any kind of statistics this season. I mean, they moved, Zaven Collins is now listed as a defensive end in a 4-3. I mean, I don't know how he'll perform there. Regardless, they need help on the defensive line. Tuimoloau is someone who I think is really, really going to shine through this year, and he's going to show us why he should be considered a top 10 pick. I think I have him higher than a lot of other people, but be that as it may, I think that the athleticism always gets guys drafted just a little bit higher. And I think Tuimoloau has some of the best athleticism in the class. Now we have the Indianapolis Colts at pick number 9 here, and this is pretty straightforward for me. I think even with Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith, I think that a investment in the offensive line is going to be key. With Anthony Richardson, like that. Ola Fashanu is someone who I thought that if he was in the 2023 draft, he initially was scheduled to declare. He didn't. He went back to Penn State for an extra year. I thought he was easily offensive tackle number 1. On my board here, I think that he's offensive tackle number 2. I still think Joe Alt is the best tackle in the class, but Ola Fashanu fits the athletic profile that I think Indianapolis is going to need to run their offense. He's big, he's strong, powerful, super athletic, and I think that's exactly what the Indianapolis Colts would need from the tackle position. So I'm going to take Ola Fashanu here at number 9. At number 10, for the Chicago Bears, they're playing with house money. This is their second top 10 pick in the draft. I'm going to take probably the best weapon that's available right here, and I'm going to go with Brock Bowers, man. This guy is just probably the best tight end prospect I've ever seen. I haven't been evaluating prospects for too long, maybe probably on the end of 4 years, I'd say. I've been really, really evaluating prospects, and Brock Bowers is that dude, man. He is going to be sensational at the next level. He's not the biggest guy, but he makes up for it with his playmaking ability. He's just a menace, and I think that's exactly what Chicago needs. I know they have Cole Kmet. I know they signed Robert Tonyan as well, but I think that they're in a best player on the board scenario, and if they're not looking for a tackle, I think Brock Bowers is the best weapon available. So I'm going to take Brock Bowers at number 10. And then at number 11, doesn't this just seem like a Bill Belichick or New England Patriots pick? Joe Alt is sitting here, Notre Dame, offensive tackle. This is a team that really, really needs offensive tackle help here. I mean, they're going into the season with their depth chart as Trent Brown at left tackle, and I believe it's Riley Reif at right tackle. I mean, they need some help. Joe Alt probably is the most technically gifted tackle in this class. Not probably. He is the most technically gifted tackle in this class. He is my tackle 1, and if he's here at number 11 and the Patriots are picking here, I think it's a no-brainer. I could see them taking a quarterback. Maybe if Quinn Ewers is still on the board, I could see that, but I'm going to go with Joe Alt. You know that if Bill Belichick is still there and they're picking at pick number 11, this is a classic Bill Belichick pick at number 11. Then at number 12, I have the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think the Raiders are going to continue to bolster their defensive line. I know if you look right now, you have, I think with the way that it's looking like, I think the Raiders are going to try and have Tyree Wilson play a little bit on the inside. It seems like they're heavy on pass rushing players. So for me, what that tells me is they're looking for a little bit of defensive, like the interior of the defensive line, a little bit more help. I believe right now it's Bilal Nichols and Jerry Tillery as their two guys. You know, you're not getting too much pass rushing with those two guys. I think they could definitely use an upgrade. And with assuming that this is the last year of Chandler Jones in Las Vegas, you move Tyree Wilson out, you have Max Crosby on the other side, and then you have Jerzon Newton. This guy is an absolute beast. I would say, I mean, we're getting into the era of undersized defensive tackles. I feel like that's just the way that the NFL is moving. Jerry Tillery or Bilal Nichols could be the other defensive tackle. This guy is a really good pass rusher. I mean, I believe 2 years ago, 4.5 sacks. This past year, 5.5 sacks. I would love to see like 7. That would really confirm my suspicion that he's more of a pass rush first type of guy. Just extremely violent. I mean, his hands, he's a fantastic player. If you haven't looked, I know that like Illinois, you know, it's not a household school, but he is fantastic. And Illinois' defense over the past couple of years has been really, really awesome under Brett Bielema. So I'm going to take Jerzon Newton here at pick number 12. And number 13, you have the Green Bay Packers, one of their 2 first-round picks that I have projected here. And this is a Packers pick here. If J.C. Latham is on the board, another guy that I think is going to be superb this upcoming season, could even maybe fight his way into the top 2 tackles in the class. He's awesome, and this is a very Packers pick here. David Bakhtiari is getting older. He's still getting injured as it is. I know that they have Yosh Neiman on the other side. They have Zach Tom, who I know that they're pretty high on. He actually played very, very well as a rookie, standing in as a rookie, but I think it's time that they try and lock down that left tackle position for the future, and J.C. Latham, I think, is the guy that could do it. At pick number 14, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers here. The interior of the linebacking position, you have Elandon Roberts and you have Cole Holcomb, guys that could produce. There's no doubt about it. But I think we're looking for a more of a long-term, younger solution. And for me, that's Jeremiah Trotter. This is, if you guys know my channel and you've been watching for quite some time, you know last year or last draft that Brian Branch was my guy. That was the do-it-all guy that is going to be a stud for now that he's on the Detroit Lions. Jeremiah Trotter is my 2024 Brian Branch. I think this guy is incredible. Sure, he's a little bit undersized for the linebacking position, 6 foot, 230 pounds, but man, he is an awesome player to watch. And I think that this would fill a really big need on the defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm going with Jeremiah Trotter here at 14. At 15, I think it's time. I think it's time that we reevaluate the Kirk Cousins situation. I like Mike Penix Jr. for the Minnesota Vikings. He's coming off of easily his best year. Hopefully going into this college football season, he continues to build on that. He is awesome. He really is. I was very surprised to see his stats that he doesn't run as much as you would be led to believe, because he's super mobile behind the line of scrimmage, but he doesn't actually run that much. He does look to throw. And I think that having that type of athleticism at the quarterback position is kind of sort of the recipe for winning in the NFL right now. We're getting into that era where, you know, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, those guys maybe not run first besides for Lamar Jackson, but those guys are all mobile. They can all get out, they can run around, they can escape pressure, and they can extend the play. And Mike Penix, probably, besides for Caleb Williams, is the best at that in this class. And I think that the Minnesota Vikings finally make the plunge and they take a franchise quarterback. At number 16, I have the LA Chargers. And I think that this is the last time that we have we're going to be seeing of Khalil Mack. It was kind of rumored that he was going to be traded or cut to save cap space. He wasn't. He reworked his deal. But I think that this is it. This is his last year as a LA Charger. He's been productive, don't get me wrong, but the money, the ends don't justify the means right now. And I think you get younger at the position. I like Braylon Trice a lot out of Washington. Washington has a lot of studs this year. They are going to be a really good team in college football this year. But Braylon Trice, coming off of a 10.5 sack season, I would love to see him sort of kind of replicate that. If we can get around the 8-9 sack mark again, I would be really, really confident in his ability to be a first-round pick. Another guy super athletic, can play the outside linebacker position. Give me Braylon Trice at number 16. Number 17, you have the Houston Texans. This is the pick from the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going to go with Michael Hall here. Hall is, the interior of the defensive line of the Houston Texans was something that I was really hoping that they would address in the 2023 NFL Draft, and they really didn't. And that's all right, because they got Will Anderson Jr. as well. So, their defensive line has automatically gotten an upgrade right there. But I think that they need to prioritize the defensive line in the first round of this upcoming draft. And I like Michael Hall a lot. 6'4", 300 pounds. Another polarizing prospect. Someone that you're going to see a lot of people love and think that he should be a top 5 pick. And a lot of people are going to say, he reminds me of like a Brian Bresee type of player where I could see him at the end of the first round, or I could see him being taken top 10. It depends on what the scouts think of him. But I think that he would be a great plug-and-play starter for the Houston Texans in their defensive line. That definitely needs a lot of work. At number 18 for the Denver Broncos here, I'm looking at some offensive line help. There's a lot of ways that you can go with this pick. Defensive line, maybe even a wide receiver, especially with Emeka Egbuka on the board still, maybe even a secondary pick. But I'm going to go with the offensive line. And the reason being, if it could load, that would be great. Garrett Bowles, going to be 33, kind of an injury-riddled player. He will only have 1 year left on his contract after this upcoming season. I think you have to shore up the offensive line behind him. Kingsley Suamataia is someone that I think is going to really, really make waves this year in college football. Huge player. They call him IHOP for a reason, because he pancakes a lot of people that come his way. He's an absolute beast. He's really athletic. I think that if he could just clean up his footwork a little bit, I think he's going to be a phenomenal player at the next level. So Suamataia is going to be my pick for the Denver Broncos here at 18. At pick 19, I think this is when I finally go back to the cornerback position. Like I said, it's not a fantastic secondary class, but there are some great players in there. Kalen King is someone that I like a lot. Joey Porter Jr. this past year got all the praise, but really the production came from Kalen King. 3 interceptions, I believe 12 pass defended last year as well. He was fantastic. A little bit on the smaller side, 6'5", 5'11", depending on what you're looking at, around 190 pounds. But he's got it all. He's a really, really good player. And I think this would be a fantastic addition to the secondary of the Detroit Lions. I know that they traded away Jeff Okudah. They signed a couple players as well. I know Emmanuel Mosley was one of those players. I'm drawing a blank on the other one. But I think if they can get a true first-round talent in that secondary, I think it would make them that much better. So Kalen King is my pick at 19. At number 20, I'm going with Mason Smith here for the Jaguars. It'll be interesting to see how Calvin Ridley comes back from his 2 years essentially away from the NFL. But he's also a free agent after this upcoming year. So if he plays really well, who knows? He might not be able to re-sign here, and they might be going wide receiver in the first round. But I like to live in a world where I think that if he's having a good year, maybe halfway through, they'll sign him to an extension, and they could really focus on their defensive line. I think Mason Smith is someone that's really, really intriguing. Another beast of a player that doesn't really produce statistically, but you could see it in his game that he's going to be a really, really good NFL player. I would love to see him capitalize a little bit more, maybe around the 5 sack mark, something like that this upcoming season. I think he would be a beast as a defensive end in a 3-4. So I'm going Mason Smith here for the Jacksonville Jaguars at 20. At number 21 for the New Orleans Saints, I think it's time to address the secondary. And it's funny because there was 3 ways I was looking at this pick for the New Orleans Saints, and all 3 players were Ohio State. They're just magnets. They're Ohio State magnets. Emeka Egbuka was one of the players I was looking at. I was also looking at Jack Sawyer as well. And then, of course, I landed on Denzel Burke is going to be my player here. I think it's time that we get another cornerback on the opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. I know Paulson Adebo is there. They got a couple of decent backup guys. I think they just need another guy that could lock down the second wide receiver. And I think Denzel Burke is that guy. He needs to, how should I put this? He needs to clean his game up a little bit, but I think that he has the talent and he has the athleticism to be a first-round pick. And, of course, as most first-round picks or most picks in general for the New Orleans Saints, he goes to Ohio State. So right then and there, and go. There's your connection right there. So Denzel Burke is my pick at number 21. This is pretty straightforward here. Emeka Egbuka is the pick here for the New York Giants. I don't even have to say that. And then here we have the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go in a different direction here. The tight end position is pretty poor. Piss poor, really, if you're looking at it for the Miami Dolphins. I think they need someone that can just catch passes for the most part. I think Dwayne Smoot is their number one tight end right now, and it's not great behind him either. Jatavion Sanders, really big body, big catch radius. I think he's going to emerge, besides for Xavier Worthy, is going to emerge as the second best pass catching option for Quinn Ewers at Texas this year. So I'm going to take Sanders here at number 23. At 24, I'm going to go with Chop Robinson. I think it's time that the Baltimore Ravens kind of readdress the pass rushing situation. Chop Robinson is an interesting case. He reminds me a lot of Lucas Van Ness. The reason being is Chop Robinson didn't start a game last year. He was great. I think he had like 13 or 14 tackles for loss. He had 26 pressures. He was great in his role, but I want to see his role expanded this year. And I think that he has more than enough athleticism. He has more than enough in his pass rushing bag. He's explosive. I just want to see him play a little bit more, maybe start a couple games as well. But then again, Lucas Van Ness didn't start a game in his collegiate career, and he went, number 15 to the Green Bay Packers? Chop Robinson is the pick for me at 24. Then at 25, the Seattle Seahawks had a really good draft. But one area that I feel like they didn't prioritize enough was the interior of their defensive line. So Leonard Taylor is going to be the pick for me here at number 25. Another explosive player that I think could really help in the middle of that defensive line. And I know they got Derek Hall as well. They're just going to continue to build with these young monsters on the defensive line. I mean, Seattle is just a team that I think really is super underrated going into this year. And I think that they're just taking steps closer to being legitimate contenders. Leonard Taylor could be a missing piece in the middle of that defense. Not only is he a good pass rusher, he's a really good run stuffer as well. From the tape that I've watched. And that's something that Seattle definitely needs. They need someone that could plug up the middle of that defensive line. Leonard Taylor could be the guy. At 26, this is the New York Jets pick, but I predict that Aaron Rodgers is going to play more than, I think it's like 80% of the snaps or something like that. So that second round pick becomes a first round pick. So this is the Green Bay Packers' second pick. And for me, it's going to be Javon Bullard. They have Javon Bullard listed as a cornerback. I think he's in the NFL as a safety, and I think that's exactly what the Green Bay Packers need. Their secondary, Darnell Savage, after that, it's really not too much to write home about. They haven't really addressed the position in quite some time, maybe since taking Darnell Savage in the first round. I think it's time that they upgrade that position. Their secondary is nice, but I think they need another safety there, and Javon Bullard could be that guy. Then you have the Dallas Cowboys. There's a lot of different ways I wanted to go with this pick, but I went the boring route. And you know what? The boring route has actually worked for the most part with the Dallas Cowboys the last couple of years, or the quote-unquote boring route. Tyler Smith 2 years ago, Mozzie Smith this past year. Like, a lot of fans are like, oh, damn, I wanted the big-name player. But very quietly, the Dallas Cowboys are making the right moves. They're building up their lines, and I think that with Terrence Steele, I believe Terrence Steele is going to be a free agent. They might have just extended him. But Tyron Smith is going to be a free agent after this next year. He's also on the older side as well. I think it's time that we get some young blood into that offensive line and potentially draft a long-term replacement. Cooper Beebe is someone that I thought was going to be in the 2023 draft as well. He turned out to go back to school at Kansas State. This is someone who has a lot of experience at the guard position and at the tackle position. I love the versatility. Apparently, the Dallas Cowboys love the versatility as well. You think of Tyler Smith, who played the majority of his time at the guard position at Tulsa, and he, flip-flopped from tackle to guard. I think he played majority tackle for the Dallas Cowboys last year when Tyron Smith was hurt. Someone has to fact check me on that, but I think BB is the right pick. The Dallas Cowboys love to commit to the run, so I think you have to build up that offensive line again. At number 28, this is going to be Xavier Worthy for me. I think that it's been clear that the Buffalo Bills are looking for another wide receiver to add. A lot of people said DeAndre Hopkins in free agency. I think that they're going to hold off for now. They're starting 3 wide receivers. If I'm off the top of my head, it's going to be Stephon Diggs, it's going to be Gabe Davis, and it's going to be Khalil Shakur. I think that they are looking for another wide receiver, another weapon for Josh Allen to look for. I know they drafted Dalton Kincaid as well. They're just trying to build a mega offense. And in the AFC, you kind of have to build a mega offense. I'm going to take Xavier Worthy here at number 28. Then it's got to be an offensive lineman here for the San Francisco 49ers. They didn't address the position in the draft, and they're going into it risking it all with the players that they have, essentially. I mean, obviously you have future Hall of Famer Trent Williams on one side. The right tackle position is busted for the most part right now. I like Connor Kobe a lot as someone who's a little bit lower ranked. It really is a good tackle class. I mean, even guys like Monheim here, Graham Barton as well. Blake Fisher is another one too. Of course, Zion Nelson, who I thought was going to be in 2023. It's a really, really good tackle class. But I think the pick is Connor Kobe. The versatility as well. 6'7", 306 pounds, can play the tackle position. He did play a number of games this past year at the tackle position. Also played at guard. I really like that line versatility. So I'm going to go with Connor Kobe here at 29. At 30, we're going to see our one and only running back here. And it's going to be TreVeyon Henderson for me. I love watching TreVeyon Henderson run. I was also thinking Raheem Sanders, but Raheem Sanders, 6'2", 225 pounds. I feel like you can go either way on that. He is a beast in his own right, but Henderson really brings that 3-down running back feel. I think if Joe Mixon does make it to the season with the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that this is his last year. They lost Samaje Perine in free agency as well. I think it's time to reinvest into the position. So TreVeyon Henderson is the pick for me. At number 31, this pick for the Philadelphia Eagles has to be a lineman for me. We know how Howie Roseman works. I think that this is not Travis Kelce. This is Jason Kelce's last year. So what that tells me is after they lost Isaac Seumalo, they are going to move Cam Jurgens over to the center position, and then it's going to leave a hole at I believe it's right guard, and that's where Donovan Jackson steps in. I think that this is easily the most polished guard in the entire draft, and I think that he would step right in and just be a classic Howie Roseman pick. I think it's much needed though. So I'm going to take Donovan Jackson here at 31. And then with the last pick in my first round mock with the Kansas City Chiefs, I am going with a massive wide receiver from Florida State. 6'7", 235-pound Johnny Wilson. And, you could say what you want. Oh, they traded up to draft Rashee Rice. They have a plethora of wide receivers. I still don't think they have the number one guy. They don't have someone that I'm confident I could rely on for, if I needed him to get 10 to 12 catches a game, in a big situation. Johnny Wilson's that guy. And you know why? Because he's taller than everyone else. And he's got an insane skill set as well for his size. He's just so massive. I think when the draft comes, I think it would be amazing if he even makes it this far. But since he is here, I think it's a no-brainer. You got the best quarterback in football in Patrick Mahomes throwing to a 6'7" wide receiver. Sign me up for that every day of the week. So Johnny Wilson is going to be the last pick of my first round mock. So I don't think they're going to grade my draft here. So let me know what you guys think. Oh no, they didn't draft it. I graded. I thought they did. But here is my first round mock, my first round mock of the 2024 mock draft season. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Please leave a like, please leave a comment, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.